So I'm talking today about impermanence and change and how it often happens gradually and keeping our eye on the horizon, building off of our reading today. But I wanted to jump back in the service because I'm so glad we had Amazing Grace today. I admit I didn't plan this and didn't think of it till later. But I love a story about John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace. You may or may not know anything about him, or even that a guy named John Newton wrote Amazing Grace. That's okay. He's a really interesting guy. Let's start with the bad stuff. In his early life, early adult life, he worked on slave ships. In fact, he captained slave ships, taking enslaved peoples from one place to another, which on the scale of terrible jobs on the planet is pretty near the top, I think. Now, he had a conversion during a particularly bad storm while at sea. And as you see in the movies, he had one of those moments where he said he would dedicate his life to doing better. Dear God, if you just let me through this, I will do better. And for a little bit he did, and then he kind of backslid. And he ended up working on those slave ships for about 20 more years. So it didn't exactly stick. But change happens very slowly, and this is something I tell myself, that ultimately he continued to do that spiritual work, left that job, and became an ardent abolitionist, and wrote that song, Amazing Grace, about himself. He's not speaking in some metaphor there when he says that a wretch like him was saved. He's talking about himself. I hope it doesn't take all of us 25 years to have that kind of conversion in our lives, but it's good to know that it can work, even if it takes a long, long time. So nothing comes from nothing. Every big thing is made up of little things, and almost always, like John Newton, they've built up over time, piece by piece, sometimes unnoticed, until suddenly something huge is happening seemingly all at once. We can go for years thinking things are calm and stable until suddenly they're not. And in these times, we can go in these times today, we can go for years thinking things are constantly chaotic. Everything always up in the air, so much so that we begin to think of that as normal. Change happens, usually at least, in little steps and then all at once. And so today I want to talk about the little steps. At least I want to talk about that first. Because we might feel in between, as I know many of you have felt in this congregation during these last 2 years. I came here to be your minister knowing my time with you would be limited, that I was here to sort of steer the ship until you had a chance to seek a longer-term minister. And I'm very glad to say that you have that coming in August. And I hope that Reverend Christy will be really great with y'all and y'all with them. I knew that you would want someone to live in this community, to grow and learn with you for many years, I hope. And it may have felt, it certainly often felt to me, like we were in a time of waiting or in-betweenness, what a number of people I know like to call liminal, from the Latin word for the threshold, the space between two rooms of a house, or the space between the inside and the outside, a space that's sort of neither here nor there, but something in between. The only reason I don't like the word liminal is I find it really hard to say. Liminal. Liminal. Okay, I'm working on it. So we may know these in-between places are necessary steps towards a new place, a new time, a new event, a new era. We might even realize that we've been here before, or something very like it at least, that in our personal lives or in the lives of our family and friends, or in the life of our country, for instance, we have felt like this before. We know these are necessary things, but it doesn't make them more desirable or easier to deal with. So sometimes we'd rather try to prevent the new from coming because we like the way things are, thank you very much. Or we'd rather skip those liminal moments, that liminal time, because we're so excited about what the next thing will bring. But the space, like this congregation has been in for these past couple of years, and will continue for a few weeks and a couple months even, and probably into a new ministry for that matter in some respects, this work serves an important purpose. The ancient Celts, among other ancient religions, believe that during twilight, the boundaries between this world and the supernatural realm are reduced. Of course, many modern pagans believe something much like this too. And during this in-between time, things are possible that are impossible at other times. With the veil between realms rendered thin, the ancient Celts believed they could communicate with the dead, for instance. And twilight allowed them to listen for what might have been left unsaid before a loved one died. Twilight signals the descent of night and provided the ancients with a few more precious moments of light, just a little bit of light to prepare for that end of the day and the coming of dark. Likewise, the liminal periods my family and I have entered, and the one this congregation has been in, are also sacred, important times. It's a space to breathe and reflect, to renew and to prepare for what's coming. This time when we can perceive a coming change that hasn't quite happened yet is a holy time. If any of you are bread bakers, you know that the dough has to be allowed to rest before it can rise and ultimately be baked and then later eaten. Likewise, this is the time for the congregation to reflect so that eventually, not too long from now, you can all rise. A sacred time for you to process the ministry you've shared together, to name emotions you're feeling, to renew energy so that when the summer ends, you're ready for whatever comes next. I love the wisdom in the reading that Anna shared with you this morning. I think it's particularly poignant during these times when we're feeling anxious, impatient, or uncertain. It's hard to resist chasing the needles in our lives or in the life of our congregation so that we can maintain focus on our ultimate destination. My grandfather, who I've obviously been thinking about a lot lately because I know I've shared a lot about him with y'all lately, he was a woodworker, as I've said a number of times. He had a different saying that I think has a little bit of the same meaning, or at least it had that for me. He would talk about letting the tool do the work. So to talk about a different kind of plane, not the kind that fly through the air, but the kind that are an important woodworking tool and have a long, relatively wide, sharp edge. They're used to smooth out a corner or level off a section of woodwork. The temptation is to push or pull the plane really hard to try to get exactly what you want in the exact spot and to do it all at once. Especially when you start working with one, that's the temptation. You find very quickly that this doesn't work. The plane gets caught, it takes off something you didn't want to take off, or it doesn't work at all. It becomes very frustrating very quickly. But if, and this takes a fair amount of practice and some of those mistakes to get right, you can let the edge go with just the right amount of pressure, not pushing really, but just enough to keep it on track. The tool does the work. It almost feels like you're just along for the ride. I'm told, though I can't speak to this personally, that, say, knitting, for instance, has a bit of the same thing. You let the tool do the work, and when you get to that point, it feels almost like the process is happening outside of you, like you're a concerned spectator in the work, but not necessarily the driver. And I think that's counterintuitive for a lot of us who really want to be in control of things and do things in a very exact way and make sure that exactly the thing that needs to be done is done in exactly the way I want it to done, and I want it to be done now. And so many things don't work that way, especially anything worth doing. So while I know that the congregation and each of us in our lives have some big needles to watch right now, some tools that we might want to push in a particular direction, like bringing in a new minister, to name one of those, a congregation, a person, a community have much bigger purposes than what those needles tell us. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent preciousness in each and every person. So because of that, each of us contributes something, a piece of what this congregation makes into a mosaic of gifts and passions and strengths and loves and deep concerns, which together form a picture of our shared purpose. Our congregation has a special, unique reason for existing in the world. Some of us call this a call or a calling, and it can lead you to something special. It, of course, needs our help and our voices to pursue it, but not necessarily to lead it, but rather to let it lead us. So these next few months and into the beginning of a new era that lies ahead of you, I encourage you to relax and renew and to hope for the future. This congregation has a beloved past, but a reminder that ours is a faith that trusts the dawning future more. So during this time of different transitions for us all, let's keep our gaze on the horizon, on our broadest purpose, and prepare for the new creation in our hearts and our minds and our community, for which we are each and all being prepared. Don't follow the needles. Let the tool do the work, and may it be so. Amen.